Yo, what's good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. Okay, hopefully I didn't absolutely blast your guys' eardrums out, and because I didn't mean to. I'm just really excited to be back into this. We are back with What If Deku had a Spartan Quirk. I was really excited about this. I'm sorry if I don't remember properly. Someone did comment this idea before, but I actually didn't get it from the comments. But I want to give whoever that is, shout out to you. Thank you so much for giving that idea. I technically didn't get it from the comment section though. It was from my from a guy that does some of my thumbnails, or that recently started and also did it before, something like that. Okay, sorry for rambling on that, but yeah. It wasn't necessarily from the comment section, but I saw someone reference it and they were like, "Oh, I'm so glad you did my idea." It's not where I got it from, but thank you so much for the comment. It's such a fire idea, like amazing idea, by the way. So however your brain works, it's doing amazing things. And yeah, I just wanted to say that really quickly. I'm excited for part 2 of this What If. So I don't want to waste much more of your time and much of mine. And I want to get right into the What If. So let's get it. Izuku Midori is surrounded by his classmates, teachers, and everybody all around him, right? You have heroes, or a couple heroes, and then you have students that have super like powers, well, being that of Quirks, and Izuku stands his ground. He knows that Kurogiri, he knows that the Nomu, and he knows that Shigaraki are the main sources of this villain group, or the main source of the villain group's power. So he wants to stand his ground and take the fight to them. And he makes it very clear to Aizawa that he wants to stand with Aizawa and fight with him as well. And he would slam his quote-unquote bow staff on the ground, and then a spear blade would come out the top of it, in which Aizawa would look at him funny, and Izuku would shrug, saying that, I mean, they had to get some sort of an attachment if he needed lethal weaponry. And frankly, this looks like a situation that he needs lethal weaponry. In which Aizawa would nod slightly, and he would tell the kid to basically protect the others, in which Izuku says that if he stays with Aizawa and they fight together, that Aizawa will be able to benefit from it more than he could imagine. To trust him, let him lead like a Spartan should. Aizawa is kind of hesitant, not wanting to allow the kid to stay in the forefront of all of this, but Izuku tells him to let him lead the charge, and let him use his spear, and let him be his spear and shield. Aizawa would just shake his head like he can't believe that he's about to do this, but he is. He tells Izuku to stay close and to fight alongside of him, and Izuku says exactly what he was thinking. Now let the Spartan lead the way. He would slam his spear on the ground once again, as an aura would surround both Aizawa and Izuku, and he tells Aizawa would tell Pro Hero 13 to protect the kids and make sure nothing happens to them. Aizawa and Izuku would charge forward, and Aizawa would activate his Erasure Quirk. But as he activates it, guess what? His eyes no longer get dry, in which it completely takes away the drawback. And now Aizawa understands why Izuku told him to allow him to lead the charge. Izuku would go in as everybody's quirks are cancelled, knocking one after another out using his shield, just shield bashing them into the ground. And as Aizawa was wrapping them up with his scarf and flinging them up, into the air, Izuku would come spiraling down, spinning his spear, not like, poking them, of course, but spinning his spear as he slams them all to the ground. In a matter of less than a minute, all of them are wiped out. And all that is left is the villains that are spread out within the USJ, and also the Nomu, and, we have Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Immediately, Shigaraki is taken back by the display that Izuku was able to show, and Izuku tells him flat out that he is not here to hear a word, or not here to hear a word of flattery from the mouth of Shigaraki. That if he says another word, he's going to seal it shut. Izuku would slam his spear on the ground once again, and Aizawa would feel even more power surging through him, and Aizawa would be, seemingly completely refreshed, as if his stamina itself is just surging even more, and it's as if his adrenaline is pumped to the maximum, but it seems as if he's not feeling the after effects of something like that actually happening. which is, let's just say, massively beneficial for someone like Aizawa. Izuku says once again that when that big thing charges at them, let him be the shield. He tells Aizawa that it's going to hurt him, it will, and there's no way around it, but it's better that he takes the brunt of the attacks and Aizawa stays back and utilizes that quirk. In which Aizawa nods his head and tells the kid that it seems like he was prepared for war, in which Izuku says that he was, but he's also prepared to be a hero. Slamming his shield and obviously showing the spear once again, putting the spear slightly pointed in front of him as the Nomu charges forward. Izuku would throw his spear toward the Nomu, and as he does, he can see a visualization in his own eyes of not one spear, but many spears. Tons of spears raining down on the Nomu, and Izuku runs at the Nomu as it's pinned to the ground slightly and smashes his shield against him. As Izuku begins to batter the Nomu with absolute technique and strikes that are made to be lethal, it's obvious that the Nomu has some insane shock absorption and some insane durability. As the Nomu would try and attack Izuku, he would slide under, grabbing his spear, ripping it out of him, as Shigaraki and Kurogiri try to get into the fight. A hand would then come out of a portal about to touch Izuku, but Izuku would immediately place his shield on it as he would stab into the arm. He would twist the spear as he's trying to basically yank Shigaraki through the portal, but the portal would eventually Shigaraki would pull his arm hard, jerking part of the stick as it breaks in half, and Shigaraki would get out of said portal. But one of his arms would be extremely wounded at this point, and well, let's just say Aizawa and Izuku are still able to fend off the Nomu to a large extent. And once, well, the one and only All Might would arrive, things would be shot to course immediately for the League of Villains. The League of Villains would be on the back foot, the other villains now defeated, and Bakugo joining the battle to stop Kurogiri from teleporting. Now his explosions are even stronger with side-by-side combat with Izuku Midoriya. This even allows it so much that Kurogiri can't even stand up. It's as if the explosions feel like absolute hell raining upon him, and it makes it so he's unable to utilize his quirk, at least not to the ability he normally does, because he would reach out to send Shigaraki away as All Might basically batters the Nomu with the help of Izuku, as he would shield bash the Nomu into the ground, as All Might would follow up with multiple Detroits of Smash, smashing the Nomu into the ground and into pieces, and eventually Shigaraki would get out through a portal, but with the help of other students, of ice, of explosions, and all of the above, and also Izuku, Kurogiri would be stopped in his tracks, and a Kurogiri would be captured. And this capture of a villain like him is massive for the near future of the heroes. Now, of course, some things would go on. You know, you have the whole evacuation. You have the whole, they would all get back together, you know, like take a little break and then come back to school. But of course, we have the up-and-coming sports festival. And the sports festival would be something very interesting for Izuku, because Izuku is basically a gladiator. At the end of the day, he takes on lots of aspects like a gladiator, or similar to a gladiator, being that he does have a Spartan-like quirk. He would tell everybody in the stadium that he is going to entertain them, and he's going to make sure that they all know without an absolute doubt that he is the strongest. It doesn't matter if he has a shield, doesn't matter if he has a spear, he doesn't need his armor, he doesn't need anything outside of that. All he needs is his will, and all he needs is his fists, and he's going to make sure that everybody understands that fully. He doesn't need weaponry, he doesn't need to hide behind a shield. He is a true Spartan, which everybody would cheer as this amazing speech would rile up the whole crowd. But it probably has a lot to do with his quirk, being that his quirk does have effect with morale. So when he starts, chanting all these things, everybody's super excited. Everybody buys into the idea of the Spartan, and they would then call him that. They would be chanting Spartan, 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 or over and over again, and they would call him basically the green Spartan for the most part because of his hair, in which he wouldn't really like the idea of the green Spartan. That's kind of weird. Spartan's just fine for him, but whatever, it don't matter. So he basically waves them all off and tells them that he's about to put on a show, and then the first event would eventually begin. The first event is simple. I mean, it is literally a obstacle course race. And an obstacle course race, let's just say, isn't the hardest thing in the world. I mean, at the end of the day, an obstacle course race is something that is massively basic, and Izuku would be able to slip through, and just his just natural ability to run, jump, and his speed and his agility and his strength, all of those things would make it very easy for him to get across the area. And when he would get to the field of mines, of course this would be a bit of an issue, but his instincts and his abilities as with his Spartan Quirk allows him to actually guide himself through the obstacles of the mines pretty easily, and eventually he would get toward the end, which he would have Bakugo and Todoroki actually right on his tail. So they would be pretty damn close. They would be on his tail, on his back, about to get there, but unfortunately they were not there in time, as they would get right beside him and he would toss them both to the ground, not allowing them to actually and fully catch up to himself. And eventually he would cross that finish line, and everybody would be cheering the name of Spartan. Everybody would be freaking out, everybody would be chanting and all of the above. And everybody would be like, wow, like this guy is truly, truly awesome. This guy is truly amazing. And they give him all the props in the world. And let's just say, when the cavalry battle would begin, if you're not saying that you want to be with Izuku, if you're not saying that you don't want to take the side of Izuku Midoriya, you're making a massive mistake. Because everybody has seen it, and a lot of the students have seen it as well, that Izuku Midoriya gets massive benefits from being around other people. And on top of that, he gets massive benefits from basically, or he gives others massive benefits of their quirks. So when a lot of people would decide, you know what, I'm not going to be on Izuku's team because of the 1,000,000 points, that was going to be a really bad choice. Because guess what? Now we have Izuku Midoriya, Tokiyami, Meihatsume, and Ochako Uraka, and Tokiyami and Ochako have no restrictions for the most part on their quirks. Tokiyami with Dark Shadow isn't as if not affected at all from the light or the massive amount of light. And even so, it seems as if Tokiyami is now able to channel a stronger version of Dark Shadow, allowing him to basically just obliterate or defend anybody who comes near. And Izuku continues to fend everybody off, and it's a very easy feat, in which Tokiyami, after they successfully win, of course, he would tell Izuku that he's never felt that much power and that much freedom. Normally he's worried that Dark Shadow will go crazy and start rampaging, but that was like a different feeling, a different chance, a different stage that he was able to show himself as and feel like. And he tells him that as a hero, he's going to be a different level of hero, in which Izuku nods and says that he hopes so. And that's the choice and the lane that he wants to go down. He wants to be the greatest hero alive, so much better than even All Might himself. And even if it might not be in the same way that All Might is, he's going to make sure that he is the greatest hero, and he is the greatest hero anybody has ever seen. And that might include, raw strength and raw power and all these crazy feats, but it also will include being able to allow others to be at a different crazy level that they never would have been in the first place. Now, with that said, this does lead them to the one-on-one battles, and let's just say this does bode well massively for Izuku Midoriya. I mean, the first fight is Shinso, and Shinso does try to mock him and say these things, but when Izuku actually responds to him, yeah, the voice has no effect. And you might be saying, well, that's crazy. Why is that? Well, it's outwardly because of the pride that a Spartan has, or Izuku has in this case. Izuku doesn't want to lose. So when his mind starts getting kind of taken over a little bit, he immediately has this Spartan-like roar within him. Aura sparks off like crazy, and it shows, like, even the people around can just feel chills going down their body as if they fear him massively. Izuku did not allow Shinso to take over his mind, as he would charge forward and kick Shinso out of the arena in a matter of a split second. Izuku would look up and ask people and ask everybody, are they not entertained? That he's going to continue to show what a true Spartan is capable of, and he'll continue to show what he can do right here and right now. But honestly, his hardest and most difficult challenge is still up and coming, and that is Shoto Todoroki. Now, you might be wondering, why is this one of his hardest challenges? Well, Shoto Todoroki has some of the craziest long-range ice attacks, and on top of that, Izuku doesn't have weaponry. Izuku doesn't have his actual weaponry, his shields and stuff like that, that would allow him to break and shatter the ice that is shot at him. So, in turn, Todoroki would have massive advantages against Izuku. But Izuku, through just pure willpower, would struggle his way through the ice. Yes, it's slowing him down, but as he would scream toward the air and letting his Spartan rage go off, he would charge through the ice. Even a massive glacier would come over him, and everybody would think it's over. But as he would crawl through the ice toward Todoroki, everybody would be completely shocked, and everybody would have chills running down their spine. What kind of monster is this guy? This is awesome. They would all scream and think that this is awesome. They chant his name. They chant Izuku Midoriya. They chant the Spartan. They say it over and over again, like the Spartan or Izuku Midoriya or anything he would go by, chanting his name over and over again. And as this happens, as these people cheer for him, he's getting stronger, pushing through the ice, barreling his way through everything, and eventually he would reach Todoroki. He would grab Todoroki by the shirt, slam him on the ground as ice would begin to trickle up his body, and Izuku would throw Todoroki so hard that he basically smashes into the outside wall, falling on the outside. Izuku would have ice crystals and crystallization all over his body, but he would break free eventually, and he would kind of shrug them off, and he would have to sit down and rest for a second because that was brutal. He even goes over to help Todoroki up because he tells Todoroki, like, that was one of the greatest displays of power that he's ever seen. And he tells Todoroki that if he used his fire side, if he used that other side, that he's not so sure if he would have made it through this battle. And Todoroki tells him that he would never have used that fire side, but Izuku says that if he ever decides to utilize it, he might even give him for a run for his money. And to think about it, seriously, think about using that other side. I mean, truly, there is nothing to lose, and truly, that is his power. Trust me, he would know. Izuku points at himself and says that even he questions the power that it comes within and how humane it is to a large extent. But he tells him to never let himself hold himself back and restrict the power that was gifted to him, even if it was gifted to him through kind of messed up and unfortunate means. In which Todoroki would look at him oddly and ask how he knows that, in which Izuku says that he can tell when people have weirdly placed anger, tell when people have kind of a messed up vibe to them. And he says that he looks at his father, looks at Endeavor, and he could tell that he is no hero, that he is furthest from a hero like All Might. Izuku would help Todoroki up, get him to Recovery Girl for the most part, and tell him that he's going to win this whole thing and make sure that Todoroki's loss doesn't look too bad on him. Todoroki would laugh at this a little bit and tell him to get out of here and hurry up and prepare for his next fight, in which Izuku would take on Tenya Ida, but this is not much of a fight, easily being able to defeat him, and it would be very similar when he faces off with Bakugo. Bakugo may have adjusted to a certain extent, but his explosions and stuff like that aren't on the level of what Todoroki's flames and ice would have been, and how just monumental those things are, how much ice he can produce and how much fire he would have been able to produce if he could utilize it. Now, on top of that, Izuku has dealt with Bakugo's explosions for a long time, and he has grown kind of just more resistant to those explosions. It's more of like a what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of situation. So he's able to defeat Bakugo even easier than he did Todoroki. Actually, way easier than he did Todoroki, because Todoroki, well, he had some freaking good things, or really powerful things that he was capable of doing. Now, this would, of course, lead them to the rewarding part of the ceremony, where you give the number one person, or the person who won everything, that being Izuku Midoriya, and everybody would cheer on Izuku. They would say, like, it was so great, and that they knew that he was going to be able to do it, and that was so impressive, and blah, 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 and blah. All that stuff, all the normal stuff they would probably say, right? Now, this would lead them on to figuring out, obviously, their hero names, which Izuku would take on the hero name of the Spartan, thinking Green Spartan, not really his favorite thing. He'll pass on that. So he decides to just go by the Spartan, which is something that he feels is pretty damn cool in his opinion. So that's something he decides to do. And then, of course, he then would go on to check out his letters he would get and all of the above on different things that he could join, or different internships that he could join, in which he does get quite a few different requests and different people reaching out. But there's one person that really catches his eye, that being Endeavor, in which he would be confused by this, but then he would look over to see Todoroki looking at him, and Todoroki nodding and then looking back away. Izuku would smirk slightly and would circle Endeavor's agency pretty deeply, thinking that type of internship would be really good for him, even if he doesn't learn as much as, well, he could. He can still get in the head of the so-called number 2 hero, who's not really a hero in the book of Izuku. At least he doesn't show true, a true fighting spirit in a way. Like, he's not a true hero, and that's something Izuku basically searches after. In which eventually he would learn that Todoroki is going to be joining him, and it seems as if Todoroki took the idea of utilizing his fire side to heart with Izuku. So when they would go with Endeavor, they would do a little bit of training where Izuku and also Todoroki would work together and fight each other and stuff like that. And he would actually be able to utilize his fire side during this time as well. And of course, Izuku, would actually be able to use like his shield and his staff and stuff like that. So it would make it so that Izuku would definitely have the upper hand, just having those defensive like items, or defensive like weapons. But of course, this would allow Todoroki to basically work on his power, his strength, his abilities, and stuff like that. This would lead them, of course, to Hosu City, and as always, would lead them to taking on the Hero Killer, which they would get there on time. And Izuku flat out tells Todoroki that all he needs to do is stay behind him. Let him be his shield, and this right here, this guy, this ugly looking guy, he's nothing. In which he slams his spear on the ground as the sword tip comes out of the staff, right? And Izuku would point it toward the Hero Killer, and the Hero Killer would say that no real hero would be looking to kill his opponents, but Izuku tells him that who said anything about killing, in which Izuku would basically make it so that Hero Killer would have to respond to the jabs that he's throwing in terms of the sharp spear, but Izuku has no intention of actually trying to kill the Hero Killer. He just wants to make it so that the Hero Killer has to respond properly. And with, of course, the effect that his quirk does to other people, this makes it so Tenya Ida is getting up a lot quicker, and also Todoroki seemingly has a even better balance and even better firepower with his flames and his ice. And with the overwhelming power of Todoroki, and also the flat out great martial arts and the unwavering just kind of willpower of Izuku, it seems as if well, Stain is falling behind. Stain is getting bashed into the ground, bashed into the walls, and as he latches, or Izuku latches Stain to his shield and points him toward Todoroki, Todoroki would shoot fire and ice both and basically infused at him, and it would absolutely incapacitate him, as Izuku would throw him to the side as he would get covered in ice, and they would make sure that the hero killer is pinned down. Izuku would put away his spear as he would just hold his shield on his arm, and he would tell Todoroki that he did a hell of a job. And he looks at Tenya Ida and tells him to stop doing stupid stuff like that. Don't ever do anything like that ever again. And he's dead serious. In which he would look back toward the alleyway as Endeavor would come spiraling through, as they would tell Endeavor that they captured the hero killer, in which, of course, Endeavor would end up having to take the credit, because, you know, you could get in some massive trouble. You can get in some really, really massive trouble if you don't give the hero, the actual hero, legal hero, you could say, the credit in this scenario. This would lead to the ending of their internships, and Izuku would be a little bit bummed by this, because he did enjoy the time that he had with Endeavor's kind of internship, and also with Todoroki, and kind of working with him as well. But he now knows that Todoroki is one hell of a capable future hero, and he tells him that flat out. Of course, Izuku, he's kind of a hard ass. I'm not gonna lie. He's kind of messed up, and sometimes he's brutally honest. If he thinks that you're a wimp, he'll call you a wimp. If he thinks that you're cool and you can fend for yourself, he'll say that as well, right? And he basically commends Todoroki for being or having a warrior spirit, in which Izuku, that's just how he is, and that's the way he's going to approach things. And he's gonna also berate Tenya for doing stupid stuff as well, and that's what he was able to do. And this would lead them to basically, figuring out that whole thing with Yue and the whole thing with Tenya Ida, but then also lead them to their final exams. Their final exams would be pretty basic, right? You have the written portion, which is very simple, but then you have the practical, which the practical would involve them fighting teachers. So who's going to take on Izuku? Well, of course, Izuku will have a partner, being that it's going to be Izuku and Bakugo, and it seems like All Might himself wants to take on the duo of Izuku and Bakugo. And Izuku tells Bakugo flat out, that if he does not allow them to work together, that they will lose. They will. And that is the reality of it. He's just going to be honest that if they don't work together properly, and if they don't work together really at all, they will never win. They just won't. In which Bakugo kind of scoffs at this, but he actually decides to listen to Izuku. And here's the reason why. The main reason why he decides to actually listen mostly to Izuku is that, well, Izuku actually beat him in the UA Sports Festival. So he's not too prideful on the fact that, I didn't get to fight Izuku and prove that I'm better. Izuku proved that he's better. And Bakugo is striving to be better than Izuku now. So he's going to give a little bit more respect now, and he's going to make sure that he falls in line just a tad. And he knows that with the help of Izuku, his explosions are going to be even stronger. So a 2-on-1 against All Might, hell, they might even be able to win. In which the fight would begin pretty quickly throughout the city, as Izuku would charge forward, taking the brunt of the attacks from All Might. And immediately, Bakugo would follow up with an explosion, and that explosion, well, that would stagger All Might backwards. An explosion that normally wouldn't even lay a little tiny dust petal on All Might actually staggers him back. Izuku would smirk at this and would slam All Might into a building, dragging him across it, as he would take his staff and slam it on All Might's leg, and then eventually try to basically immobilize All Might, attacking the limbs of All Might, right? Attacking the arms, attacking the legs, trying to slow him down entirely. And then as Bakugo continues to berate All Might with explosions, All Might tries to take out Bakugo, but as he throws a punch toward Bakugo, guess who's there? Ready to block and tank the damage. Izuku blocks with his shield, as seemingly his shield continues to reverberate and actually pushes all of that right back at All Might, sending All Might right back into one of the buildings that Izuku is trying to hold him onto. And immediately, Izuku is ready. Izuku tells him, or tells Bakugo, that it's now its time, as he would slam his shield once again, pounding on it as if it's a signal, but it's really an ability where it's going to allow Izuku to tank even more damage, or that's what it feels like, at least. Or maybe it's just a bunch of adrenaline basically getting pumped through his body, allowing him to take more damage. Now, Izuku would block the next punch, and out of nowhere, let's just say a gauntlet would get pulled and the pin would get pulled out as this massive explosion. An explosion that almost encapsulates a giant building that they're right next to, would cover All Might. Izuku would hold All Might right where that explosion is, pushing him back into it, as he would tell Bakugo that he thinks it's time for them to take off. As they would run toward the exit, as they would look back, and Bakugo would look back as well just a little bit, as All Might is currently brushing off the explosion. His suit and his body slightly burned and actually hurting quite a bit, but they realized during this fight that it was just going to be a battle of longevity. So they decided that it would be best for them to try and stagger All Might massively enough so that they can just head the hell out. In which Izuku would smirk at this a little bit, saying that normally he would be against the idea of running. He doesn't like the idea of running, but he's going to have to swallow his pride right now, at least for the moment, so that they can get out of here and escape. Plus, it's not necessarily running when this guy doesn't really take much damage. They would look at All Might as he's chasing him down, and Izuku would smirk, saying that this is the first time he's actually had fun in a long time, and it's kind of different. This doesn't really feel like a warrior's environment. It feels like, you know, a young hero or a young hero student actually trying to become a hero. Of course, Izuku wouldn't be like saying this out loud. He'd be thinking about this, and he would think to himself, like, this is the first time he's actually had fun on this journey to being a hero. I mean, outside of, you know, like bashing in some skulls, because of course that's fun. But at the end of the day, he realized that All Might was no joke, and he's not quite strong enough to do what he wanted to do, at least for now. Now they would head out, and they would be victors in this final exam, and this would allow them to qualify to go to the forest training camp. And the forest training camp, well, that's just another place where Zuko's gonna get stronger and stronger, and a place that he's going to be able to show off even more of the powers that his quirk grants him, because let's just say this, the forest training camp might just have an invasion, at least an invasion that won't be your typical one, because without Kurogiri, well, the villains are going to have to make a choice. Are they going to go in just blind, go in and hope that they have brought in more or enough power to actually secure being able to exterminate or hurt some of the people there? Or maybe they'll just bring a little bit more reinforcements than last time. Well, you're going to have to find out what happens in the next part of What If Deku Had a Spartan Quirk. Excuse me. And if you enjoyed, yeah, please show some love. If you want to see part 3 ASAP, please show some love to the video. And yeah, that's really all I got to say. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, like I said, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.